Illegal to fish for whales on Sunday, Ohio. Imagine standing on the shore of Lake Erie with a fishing rod, waiting patiently for a whale to bite. Sounds ridiculous, right? That's exactly why this law is so famous. Ohio, a landlocked state with absolutely no whales anywhere near it, technically makes it illegal to fish for whales, especially on Sundays. This law dates back to old blue laws, which were created to enforce religious standards and restrict certain activities on Sundays. These laws were never designed with whales in mind. Instead, they were written broadly to regulate hunting and fishing on the Sabbath. Over time, as laws were updated and rewritten, this absurd wording survived. Today, the law exists purely as a legal relic, proof that lawmakers never bothered to remove something that was clearly impossible to violate. No one has ever been arrested for whale fishing in Ohio, but legally speaking, if a whale ever did appear, Sunday would be the worst day to go after it. It is illegal to get a fish drunk. This strange Ohio law actually has a serious origin. It is illegal to intentionally intoxicate a fish using alcohol, chemicals, or any substance that impairs its natural behavior. While it sounds funny, this law exists to protect wildlife and prevent unethical fishing practices. In the past, some people would pour beer, chemicals, or fermented substances into water to slow fish down, making them easier to catch by hand. This method caused environmental damage, killed other aquatic life, and polluted water sources. Ohio lawmakers responded by criminalizing the act entirely. Today, even though no one realistically tries to get fish drunk anymore, the law still stands as a reminder that wildlife protection laws were written very specifically. So yes, if someone jokingly dumps alcohol into a pond to party with the fish, they could technically be breaking Ohio law. You must report a lost pet tiger in Canton within 1 hour. This law sounds insane until you realize it exists for public safety. In Canton, Ohio, if you own an exotic animal like a tiger and it escapes, you are legally required to notify authorities within 1 hour. This ordinance was created after incidents involving exotic pet ownership became a serious concern. Ohio once had very loose regulations on owning wild animals, leading to dangerous situations when animals escaped or were neglected. A loose tiger roaming neighborhoods isn't funny, it's deadly. This law ensures that emergency responders can act quickly to protect the public. While the idea of someone casually owning a tiger sounds bizarre today, this rule remains active because exotic animal ownership still exists in limited cases. If your tiger goes missing, waiting is not an option. Call immediately or face legal consequences. In Cleveland, you need a hunting license to catch mice. At first glance, this law sounds completely absurd. Mice, a hunting license? But in Cleveland, catching mice without proper authorization is technically illegal. This law dates back to early public health regulations when rodents were considered a major threat to cities. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, mice and rats were responsible for spreading disease, destroying food supplies, and causing fires by chewing through wiring. City officials feared that unregulated pest control methods, like poison or traps, could harm children, pets, and even contaminate homes. So they categorized mice as wild animals under hunting laws. That meant only licensed individuals could legally trap or kill them. Today, pest control companies automatically comply with these rules, but the wording remains unchanged. So technically, if someone in Cleveland tries to hunt a mouse without permission, they are breaking the law, even if it's just in their kitchen. Roller skating in North Canton requires notifying police. In North Canton, roller skating without informing the police is technically prohibited. This strange law comes from a time when skating wasn't a hobby. It was a public disruption. Decades ago, large groups of skaters would race through streets, sidewalks, and public squares, often colliding with pedestrians and vehicles. With no helmets, no traffic rules, and no regulation, injuries became common. Instead of banning skating entirely, city officials chose control. They required skaters to notify the police in advance so officers could manage traffic and ensure public safety. While the law sounds ridiculous today, especially with skate parks everywhere, it still exists. No one calls the police before roller skating now, but legally speaking, the city never removed the requirement. It's a reminder of how harmless activities once caused major civic concern. Killing a housefly near a church requires permission. This law is one of the strangest still associated with Ohio. It states that killing a housefly within approximately 160 feet of a church requires permission. While it sounds like religious extremism, the reality is far more practical. This ordinance originated during a time when churches doubled as community centers, hospitals, and shelters. Flies were known disease carriers, but excessive pesticide use around churches raised health concerns, especially for children and the elderly. The law aimed to regulate pest control, not worship. Officials wanted to prevent people from spraying harmful chemicals near sacred and public spaces. Over time, the wording became exaggerated, and the law took on a life of its own. Today, no one enforces it, but it technically remains part of municipal code, making a simple fly swat near a church legally questionable. In Columbus, stores cannot sell Corn Flakes on Sunday. This law sounds like a joke aimed directly at breakfast lovers, but its roots are deeply religious. In Columbus, Ohio, selling certain items like Corn Flakes on Sundays was once restricted under what were called blue laws. These laws were designed to protect Sunday as a day of rest, worship, and family time. Lawmakers believed that allowing normal commerce would distract people from church and encourage excessive labor. Corn Flakes became a specific target because packaged breakfast foods symbolized convenience and modern consumerism, which religious leaders feared would replace traditional family meals after church. Over time, most blue laws were repealed, but oddly specific restrictions like this one were never fully cleaned out of the legal system. Today, no store is realistically punished for selling cereal on Sunday, but the law still exists on paper, making Corn Flakes one of the strangest, forbidden foods in Ohio history. In Akron, it's illegal to post signs at a swimming pool. Posting signs near swimming pools sounds like a safety measure. So why would Akron ban it? This law actually emerged from too many signs, not too few. Decades ago, public pools became cluttered with warning signs, advertisements, political posters, and even religious notices. Officials worried swimmers were ignoring safety rules because the signs blended into visual noise. Rather than regulate content, the city made a broad rule restricting signs altogether. The idea was that lifeguards and staff should give verbal instructions instead. Over time, the law became outdated as modern pools introduced standardized safety signage. However, the original ordinance was never repealed. So technically, hanging an unauthorized sign near a pool, even one that says "no running," could violate local law. It's a perfect example of good intentions creating absurd legal leftovers. Electric fences are banned in Canton. In Canton, Ohio, electric fences are not allowed, and this rule was created out of fear, not humor. When electric fencing technology first became popular, it was poorly regulated and often dangerously installed. Children, pets, and even passers-by were injured by exposed wiring and improperly grounded systems. City leaders decided that the safest approach was a full ban. Rather than update the rule as technology improved, the city left it untouched. Today, electric fences are far safer and widely used in rural areas, but in Canton, the old law still applies. If someone installs an electric fence for security or livestock, they could face fines or be ordered to remove it. The law reflects a time when cities preferred banning innovation rather than adapting to it. Playing games in Canton parks requires the superintendent's permission. At first, this law sounds like a complete overreach. Why would anyone need official permission just to play a game in a public park? The answer lies in how parks were once viewed, not as casual hangout spots, but as carefully controlled public spaces. When this ordinance was written, parks in Canton were often used for organized events, political gatherings, and even military drills. Unregulated games sometimes damaged landscaping, injured bystanders, or interfered with scheduled activities. To prevent chaos, the city required approval from the park superintendent for any organized activity, including games. Over time, casual recreation became normal, but the wording of the law never evolved. Today, kids play soccer and families toss frisbees without thinking twice. But technically, any organized game without permission could violate city code. It's a law frozen in an era when order mattered more than spontaneity. In McDonald, Ohio, you may not parade a duck down Main Street. This is one of Ohio's most famous weird laws, and it actually has a story behind it. The village of McDonald once had a problem with livestock and poultry roaming freely through town. Farmers would walk animals down public roads to markets, creating traffic hazards and sanitation issues. Ducks were especially problematic because they moved slowly, unpredictably, and left a mess behind. To solve the problem, the town banned duck parades altogether. Over time, farming methods changed, roads modernized, and the problem disappeared. But the law stayed. Today, the idea of someone walking a duck down Main Street sounds hilarious, yet technically illegal. It is a perfect snapshot of small-town America solving a very specific problem and never bothering to clean up the paperwork afterward. Road maps sold in Lima must clearly show Lima. This law is pure civic pride turned into legislation. In Lima, Ohio, it is illegal to sell a road map that does not clearly include the city of Lima. This rule was created during a time when printed maps were the primary navigation tool, and being excluded from a map could seriously hurt a city's economy. Town leaders feared travelers would bypass Lima entirely if it didn't appear on maps, costing local businesses money. To protect their visibility, officials passed a law requiring map makers to include the city. While GPS and digital navigation have made this law obsolete, it technically still exists. So, if someone sold an outdated or incomplete paper map today that skipped Lima, they could be violating local law. It is one of the rare cases where insecurity and pride combine to create a legally binding rule. Spitting is illegal in Oxford's town square. Spitting might seem like a minor bad habit today, but when this law was written, it was considered a serious public health threat. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, diseases like tuberculosis, influenza, and pneumonia were widespread, and doctors believed saliva was one of the main ways infections spread. Public spitting was seen as dangerous, disrespectful, and unsanitary, especially in crowded town squares where people gathered daily. Oxford passed a law banning spitting in its central square to protect citizens and keep public spaces clean. While modern medicine has reduced the fear around saliva, the law was never removed. Today, no one enforces it aggressively, but technically, spitting on the ground in Oxford Square is still illegal. It's a reminder of a time when public hygiene laws were written with life or death urgency. Driving around Oxford's town square more than 100 times is illegal. This law sounds ridiculous until you picture what inspired it. Oxford AS Town Square was once a hotspot for young drivers, showing off their cars, circling the square again and again, honking horns, revving engines, and blocking traffic. Residents complained of noise, congestion, and constant disruption. Instead of banning cruising outright, lawmakers set a numerical limit, 100 trips around the square. It was meant to curb excessive behavior without punishing casual drivers. Of course, no one realistically counts their laps today, but the law remains written exactly as it was. Technically, if someone drove around the square 101 times in a single outing, they'd be breaking the law. It's an oddly specific solution to a very real community annoyance. Riding on the roof of a taxi is illegal in Youngstown. Out of all Ohio's weird laws, this one might be the most sensible and the most cinematic. In Youngstown, riding on top of a taxi cab is illegal. This law dates back to a time when people would climb onto vehicles during parades, celebrations, or late-night mischief. Without seatbelts or safety rules, these stunts often ended in serious injury or death. City officials banned the practice outright to protect both riders and drivers. While the image of someone riding a taxi roof feels straight out of an old movie, the law remains relevant. Even today, doing this would be extremely dangerous. Unlike many weird laws, this one survives because common sense never changed, even if the behavior did. These strange Ohio laws may sound funny today, but each one tells a story about fear, safety, pride, religion, or public order. They remind us that laws don't just appear, they're shaped by the problems, values, and mistakes of the past. And sometimes, even when the problem disappears, the law never does.